Hey, Jonathan here. Let's go ahead and create a simple solid as we are learning modeling basics in Archicad. Let's do it. Right, so using the file provided, let's go ahead and double click on ground floor and let's look for the exercise 3.1. Here, we will be modeling a simple solid using these floor plans and then adding some windows to it. So the first thing we're going to do is going to the project map and we're going to create a new worksheet. Right click, new independent worksheet, and we're going to call it floor plan trace. Then once we're here, we're going to place an external drawing. And for that, we're going to go to File, External Content, Place External Drawing. And then from the documents provided, look for the ground floor or GF. Click OK, and then we import it. Now we're going to resize it by going to Edit, Reshape, Resize. We're going to define graphically, and then we're going to use the graphic scale to resize this properly. We click more or less the 0 one time, and then we move all the way to the 5. As we can see, this is already properly scaled. Now, if we weren't that nice, we would actually provide one that doesn't work, which we should do. No, we won't do this. So for example, let's imagine we want to make this 50. Then you click on it and then you type in 50. And then you would get from 0 to 50 would be 50 meters. But since now it's correct, we're going to leave it as it was. We're going to then move this drawing to more or less the center where the 0 is. And then we are going to save this view so that we can then use it as a trace reference. Now we're going to go to ground floor again. And we want to make sure that we're using that floor plan as trace as show as trace reference. As you can see here, show as trace reference. And then we no longer are going to get all of the trace references that we provided for you, but you're going to get the trace reference that we did together right now. And that I think is very important. You of course have the help from us, but it's important for you to find your own way and do your own exercises. Then we're going to move this. Even though you have two options now, you can move this down by switching like this, and then I can grab it and put it close to where I need it. Or you could have just moved the trace reference itself and then it just goes back. For now, I think this is the best way to do this. Now we're going to switch again. We're going to go and have the ground floor as an active view. So now we should be ready to start the morph command from the toolbox. Go to the morph. Then we're going to just go as close as we can and model more or less as precisely as you can, of course, the main box. And the height is going to be 540, which is coming from the section that was also provided to you. Now we're going to go to the 3D window, either by double clicking here or doing it with me. You can go to the marquee tool, selection all floors, make a marquee, right click on it and click on show selection marquee in 3D, which is the F4. Now we have it here. Now this thing has 5 meters 40 high, and now we're going to move the edges to create the roof. We're going to click on this middle point here, wait for the pet palette, and then go and click on add nodes or that little pencil. Then we can change the geometry method so that we're allowed to do just one line. Here we go. I click once and now I have an extra line. Then I can change the selection mode, the arrow tool, from the simple selection, from the normal selection to sub-element selection, which is the white arrow. Then when I click on that line, I should be able to activate the drag command, which is Command D, or edit, move, drag, then select a reference point, doesn't matter which one it is, and then you go upwards 2.6 meters. And now we have a simple solid. Let's keep going. Now we're going to go back to the ground floor And we're going to start a solid volume element operation. Let me show you how this should look in 3D. For that, let's use our method to go to 3D, which is with the marquee. Now we select both of them, and now we hold down the F4 key. This takes us to a 3D. If you see nothing, it's because we're basically in another spot. So now we're going to click on Zoom Select or Zoom Extend or Fit in Window down here to the left. And then the camera should be automatically moved towards there where there's things. So the left side is the example. As you can see here, we are actually modeling a solid that we are then going to use as an operator to generate the openings. And then we can turn this off, as I'm going to do now using this button here, hide selection. It hides the selections layer. So when that layer is off, then you see you have the actual surface that we can now 3D print with the openings. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go back to the ground floor. We'll look for the 3.3. We select the marquee or go escape. And now we want to model the windows. For that, it's a good idea to have the trace reference behind it. So the best way to do this exercise is to do it in the one that you did. In this case would be this one here. This one, because it's the one we're doing together, the one you're doing. So the best thing for you to do is to bring this one there, and then you're always working with your own model, or do the exercise over here. That also works. Here, for demonstration purposes, it's already set up that the worksheet context is already set up as a trace reference. So now we can right click on it and say, show us trace reference. And here I can start modeling the windows on the ground floor. For this, I am going to see more or less, we're going to start. So before we get started, let's make sure that we know where we want to model. Basically, we need to have this width in the floor plan and this height here. And we also want to know how far from the floor it is. So with the letter M, you can measure, or clicking this little icon over here, you basically have a tape measure that you can use. So I can measure from here up, it's 15. And the window itself, M again, is, these are 2 meters high and it's 1 meter wide. So this one would be that one. And the big one from the middle, we can also get the measurements from here. 271, 75, because this one we actually should take it from the section so that we have the right height. But this is essentially how you get the measurements. You just basically find a way to get the measurements you need. And now here we're going to model this. Here I start the morph command, and then I change the geometry method to box. Then I make sure that I'm starting a little bit outside of the morph. And then I enter 2 values. One is going to be 0.75, which is the width that we are looking from the outside that we measured on the facade. And then as thick for the second value, 0.60. And the height, meaning the extrusion length, how high it's going to go, it's going to be the 2 meters that we checked before on the facade. Click OK. Now that we have that solid that we're going to use as a model to make the holes, we're going to place it properly in the middle. And then now the last measurement we need to check is how high from the floor this is. So we're going to go right here. We're going to see the elevation from the home story. It's set to 0. Let's change that to 0.15. So now this, without me going to the 3D, I know where it is. And if you're not sure, you can always go back and check. And all these changes you can also do straight from the 3D. But I thought it was good to show you that you can also do it without knowing that, having that certainty of what's happening on the 3D side of things. All right, so now that we know we have it on the right spot, I want to make 1, 2, 3, 4 copies. You can use multiply, or let me show you this trick, which is, so I just want to show you this little trick of mine. Basically, you go Command D, you select the object you want to copy, you go Command D, and then you hold down the Alt and Command key at the same time, and that would allow you to have a double plus. That, look what happens now. So I click once, and then I place the first one. Then I can keep on placing instances as I move forward without having to start again. I do another one and another one. When I'm finished, I just hold down the escape key, and I should be finished. Now to do the second floor, we are going to do here a quick and neat trick I want to show you, which is this trace reference window that you have here has a couple of buttons down here. I want to tell you about them. All right, so now we want to model the windows that are on the second floor, and the reference is set for the ground floor. So I want to show you another trick that the trace reference window has to offer, and that is the drag the reference command. Here, this one, it moves the whole worksheet. It doesn't just move the drawing itself, and you can always reset it back to its original position. So let me show you how this works. We click down on drag the reference, and then we're going to go and look for the floor plan that I actually need, which in this case is actually this one here. It's the one that is on top. Then I can click once on the inner wall so that I can use that reference. And as you can see, the whole worksheet is moving with me. And I'm going to drag it all the way here where I need it. Click. And now I'm primarily placed to put the windows on where my solid is. So let's try that. All right, now that I have the reference where I need it, let's go ahead and move on to the morph command from the toolbox. Make sure that the geometry method is set to box again. Now we are going to click where the window should start. We're going to the other direction. Then we set the extrusion length to 2.5, which is the height that we measure in the facade. And then we're going to then make a copy, Alt Command D, to set it exactly in the opposite direction. Now we're holding the Shift command, we select both of them, and we're going to change its height in the model to 275 from the home story. Notice that you can change this to project 0, current story, and a bunch of different things. 275, that's it. And now we want to check what we did. For that, we're going to use again the marquee tool. We're going to just marquee the one that we worked on, and then F4. Now, as we can see, we have the morph 1 and the morph 2. Now, a second thing we need to make sure we did is to make sure that we have them in different layers. This one is operator 815, and this one is also the operator, which is wrong. So this one right now is important that it's wherever else. All right, we're starting out, we don't care much about layers. Just make sure that they're in different layers, okay? So now that we have that, we can go ahead and start the solid volume operations. As you can remember, this is under design, solid element operations, which is essentially the Boolean operations we learned from at the beginning of the course. Here we always have 3 questions, as you can remember. One is who's going to be modified. Second is who's going to modify. And the third is what's the operation. So let's start with the target element is definitely the one that is going to be modified, which is the big box, which has nothing in it yet. We select it and then we click get targets, and notice how this little 0 becomes 1. Now we're going to select the operators, which is the second question. Escape when Archicad is not doing what you want. Then you click the ones that you do want, holding down the Shift key. 2, 4, 5. The big one on one side and the other big one on the other, without letting go of the Shift key. And then you click on Get Operator Elements, and notice how this becomes 7. The third question is the operation, which is subtraction. And then we click on Execute. Now we select the operators, and using this little key here, we can turn off everything that is selected. Now, if you want to do this really properly, then make sure that you put the operators into the, let me show you that. Let me go back. This takes you back one step of the layer visibility. So now to put these in the right position, in the right layer, they should be on the 119 layer 119, which is the operators for the sites existing. Operator layer are very important because then I can always turn them off and then have my model ready. All right, last step is, of course, we had modeled something, so we should be ready to 3D print. So for that, now that everything is isolated with F4, I can go ahead and click on File, Save As, select where I want to save this, which in my case is going to be the desktop. Then we're going to name this Simple Solid. And then we're going to pick this format to be stereolithography, which is the long version of STL. When we click on Save, it asks us about the scale. Now, this is great in Archicad. It's doing a bunch of things at the same time. If you see the same video in Rhino, you'll notice how there you have to go back and forth a little bit. So this is an incredibly good tool for us to use. Right now, we're going to define the scale to 1 to 200. Click on save, and then we have a perfectly 3D printable 1 to 200 model of our current version of our design. That's it. See you in the next one.